evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast here. The only podcast that's focused on the revival of our beloved drive-in culture. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello.
Hi there.
And we have a very special, long overdue guest in Al Monelli, director of At the Drive-In and Marionette Land. Say hello, Al.
Hello, and thank you for the free plug, Virgil. I appreciate it.
Hey, Plug City. Plug.
I got to get those royalty payments, you know?
Well, for those that do not know, Al is more than a part of the family. He has really given us the gift that keeps on giving in the At the Drive-In documentary, which at this point is internationally known, and we hear about it constantly as far as the love of this film, for this film, what it represents. And Al is the director, the sole cameraman on this project, pretty much the guy who made this movie happen. And it's not an understatement when I say I'm going to be talking about this movie until the day that I die. It's given us such a boost and notoriety with getting the word out there of what the Mahoning Drive-In Theater is, and really has given us such a gift. I really don't know how to say it besides.
I appreciate it, and thank you. I'm curious because so this film it's really an origin story of you guys and how this version of the Mahoning Drive-In exists today.
Yes.
But I'm curious. I'm curious, like maybe someone who came to the Mahoning last year for the very first time and saw, you know, like a giant whale, like pooping on this like big set, and like all of the elaborate sets that James and his team put together now, and just the way you guys have upped the game and bringing all of these guests, these celebrity guests. I'm curious how someone who has that experience then goes and watches the documentary. What you were doing was so crude then compared to now. I could only imagine it as someone who like grew up watching like the current Star Wars movies, and then with all the lightsaber fights and all the exciting things, and then they go and watch A New Hope and they're like, what the fuck is this? Like,
what just happened?
Yeah, like this is so different. It's you know, it's quiet. It's like, you know, so I'm curious about people who go there now for the first time and then watch the documentary, because in the documentary, like a DeLorean showing up randomly on Back to the Future weekend was like, you know, we felt like the documentary gods had given us a gift.
Absolutely.
And now if you went to the Mahoning for Back to the Future weekend, you could sit in a screen used DeLorean, you know. And
that's what I mean about it giving us, it kind of birthed what we are, you know, like it gave us enough steam and attention to be able to lean into kind of the events that we wanted to do and dreamed of doing, you know?
Yeah.
And not only that, but it gave us the attention to be able to get the guests. We would never be able to have, you know, gotten the guests without them knowing of the legend of the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, which was really born in that year that you caught us on film. It's incredible how the stars lined up, not only just for the making of the movie, but kind of the aftermath of it all, where you could never plan, and I'm sure you know this, you can never plan on the success of a film or how it's going to be received or what it's going to be looked at as. You can only dream it, you know? And to see it become something that I can only describe as a magic carpet, you know, it's out there in the world and just sweeps up people as it goes along, you know?
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It's magic, man. It's so magical, you know?
It's definitely bizarre, and seeing that Colin Hanks watched it twice
tickles me to no end.
Yeah,
right?
I could just say that for the rest of my life. Well, did Colin Hanks watch your movie twice?
I don't think so. He's a fan. Yeah, it's nuts. And really the heart that you captured is the heart that we try to live up to and display every single weekend at the Mahoning, and it's a beautiful thing. But why don't we talk a little bit about drive-ins in your past? We were kind of talking about being in the position you are, the director of At the Drive-In. Naturally, you must have been at drive-ins constantly, right?
Well, that's what I mean. Again, everyone after a screening of At the Drive-In, someone would always come up and want to know all the drive-ins I'd been to. And I mean, honestly, growing up, we had a drive-in in my hometown, the Circle Drive-In. I went to it, a fair amount of times with my family, but I can't remember any of the movies I saw there. The only thing I remember is on the back of the screen, there's a big ladder. And I think there might be one on the Mahoning screen as well. I think it was a pretty common thing for drive-in screens to have kind of a ladder attached to them.
Yeah.
And during intermission, all of the little kids would kind of run around and go up to the screen. And I remember everyone was kind of daring each other to climb up the ladder. And I just started going. Like, I just started climbing. And people were like, this kid's doing it. He's doing it. And I mean, I chickened out after about 6 feet, but I just remember that experience. Wow. And I guess that goes to something in the documentary with just that sort of feeling of being a child, being free, having these memories at a drive-in. Although that's a specific and small memory, that I feel like is a sort of microcosm of childhood. Like, where were our parents? They were out in cars. They weren't even watching us. Like, I could have climbed to the top of this giant drive-in screen. Yeah. No one was watching. and I feel like that is part of, and you talked about it in the film, Virgil, that those simpler times. And I think that memory reminds me of and influences my work in a way, because I always try to tell stories like that. And At the Drive-In is certainly.
And metaphorically, you're reaching for that ladder. You're looking to take that risk.
Yeah, exactly. No,
am I reading too?
It's cheesy, but it is, you think of those weird memories from your childhood when you're just like, why am I thinking about this while I'm trying to go to bed in my 30s? Like, why is this random memory popping into my head? And that is really the only memory I have as a kid going to the drive-in. Yeah. But I would go.
It's strange apple pie moments, like I think of movies that do it really well, like The Sandlot or something like that. And you think like, oh, that was my childhood. And you think back and you're like, yeah, not really, but there were those moments that you can remember back. You're like, wait, I did play kick the can and like had those kind of simple memories, and you dish back to it. But the drive-in, if you had that experience, it's one that embeds really hard,
Yeah.
But your experience with drive-ins growing up, do you remember, any films that you saw at drive-ins? I mean, obviously, like you said, you have the memories of the drive-in that connect you to your childhood.
The only film I remember seeing, and it's because I was a lot older, I was driving around with my now wife, then girlfriend, and I could see from the street, the Circle Drive-In, I could see the screen, and it was Pirates of the Caribbean 2, Dead Man's Chest. And it was like midway through the movie, so I went in through the exit, and at the Circle, it's like, they can't, so you just turn your lights off, sorry, Circle Drive-In, I'll pay you, I'll pay you $5 that's like 15 years overdue. But yeah, we just kind of went up and parked and watched the movie. And it was the only experience of seeing a movie that I can remember at a drive-in. We were sneaking in with my now wife. And it was Pirates of the Caribbean too. So
wow.
Yeah.
You would think that, especially because how beautifully you were able to capture that, and make it feel like we're telling a modern day story of a certain drive-in, but it's so nostalgic and kind of dipped into what it represents and the past of it represents, you know, so you would think you would have
Yeah, no, I know.
story.
And I think it's more, I love movies, but it's also my style, the way I like to tell stories, what I gravitate towards. You know, you mentioned Sandlot,
Right.
and I feel like that's such a perfect, you know, narrative counterpart to At the Drive-In, because At the Drive-In is basically like one summer in your guys' lives.
Yeah.
And it was like this perfect moment of these sort of ragtag guys coming together and, you know, pulling it off.
Yeah.
And like you said, you'll always be thinking about it. And I think you would feel that way even if it sucked. Like, even if it was the worst movie, I think because this captures you guys at an early stage in creating this thing. And and I've said this a million times, it's an origin story. It's like a superhero origin story. You know, it's very much how it all started. You know, it's not the big bells and whistles with Joe Bob coming and all that. It's these
Right.
simple, quiet,
Two cars. Will we
yeah,
get
two
anybody?
cars,
Yeah.
James struggling to get into his, you know, Jason Voorhees costume. Like, it's those little things. And hopefully that remains a nice memory for you guys.
Well, I've said that for a while now, is that I want to say I'm too close to it to accurately, independently judge the quality of the film. Although, I mean, come on, it's a great friggin' movie and it's beautifully shot. But aside from that, I always tell people, you know, if nothing else, it is a beautifully shot record of a summer I had with my best friends.
Yeah.
And it'll always be that.
I love movies that are either one day or one summer. You know, I like those kinds of movies. So I feel like this kind of fits in that category a little.
What inspired you? You know, we're around the same age. We very much are like-minded, have the same likes. But what inspired you to really take that leap of leaps and say, I want to make a movie? And not only that, but I'm not going to rely on anybody else. I'm going to do it solely on my back. The fact that you were the guy, you were the only guy there. There wasn't like, hey, you got the whole crew here today. It was like, if we're doing an interview, it's Al, you know? So how and why and what gave you the belly strength to get out there and be like, I'm going to do this?
Well, I turned 30 and I had a whole sort of oeuvre of short films, and I had not made a feature. And I turned 30 in November of 2015. And I said, you know what? All of my favorite directors had made a feature by the time they were 30. So I have to do something.
Totally.
And it started just out of that desperation of, well, if I sit here, and, you know, it was really the sort of Kevin Smith way of thinking, where just go out and do it. And if I had sat back and said, well, I got to write a script, and then I got to find money, and then I got to find a cast and a crew and all that, it would have just taken forever. And I said, what can I do where I can just jump in? And, you know, I had been making, again, these short documentaries where I shoot them, edit them, direct them, and I would kind of churn them out pretty regularly for work and for my own career.
Right.
And I said, well, let's see, can I do that as a feature and sustain it for 90-ish minutes? And I kind of just looked around for a subject. And again, because of that desperation of turning 30 and feeling like I was ancient and old.
And your heroes were chasing you down.
Yeah.
I know that feeling. That's a weird feeling that it drove me into depression at times. I remember, you know, where it's like, this person had an Oscar. This person was, you know, out there established, you know, it eats away at you as a creative person, that competitive nature almost, you know?
Yeah. And it really just, you know, I was determined. And back then I felt like you had that vinegar, and it's funny because I felt a very symbiotic relationship with you guys in terms of what I was capturing. I felt like, again, we were this team of people who were just all at the same stage, even though some of us were a little older, some of us were a little younger. It just felt like we were all We had all met at the right time.
All taking a risk together.
Yeah, because again, and the risk you guys were, running a drive-in and trying this sort of new way of doing it. And I was making a feature film, and we were all doing that kind of together, and things kind of bled into each other in a way where, especially after the fact, like I remember, saying, hey, what about this for a double feature? Or, you guys would do a great job of like helping promote the documentary. So we really just kind of came together in a way. So I don't feel like I just made this by myself. I do feel like I had you guys as sounding boards, because even still, Mark, you wouldn't have been in the documentary if it wasn't for everyone else. I didn't know who you were. I was content with Jeff, Virgil, and Matt. And I kept getting told, well, you got to talk to Mark. You've got to talk to Mark. And I was like, okay, well, who's this Mark guy? And I finally met you and talked to you and learned about you, that your story traveling, we all know your story. And I'm sure people ask you, and I'm so sorry.
Every week.
Almost every week. So are you that guy who drives down from New Hampshire? Do you still drive 6.5 hours?
Yeah. So I'm very sorry.
No, it's fine. No. And what was wild was, with the year or so after the film came out, people would be coming up to me and greeting me by name who I'd never met before. And immediately you flash back on, is this a regular that I don't recognize? Am I a bad person? It's like, no, they watched the documentary.
When they watch the movie, they feel like they know you immediately because it's so ultra personal, it opens up the heart in such a big way. And I love that. It lends to what we do. We say every night, we are a family. You are part of this family. And when people come and kind of feel like they know you in a familial sense because they know your life, your passions, your goals, it's incredible. Like I said, it feeds what we do.
I think it was because I wanted it to feel raw. I wanted it to almost feel like a home movie in a way.
Yeah.
But I also wanted it to look like a Terrence Malick film too at the same time. So it has that kind of dual nature going for it.
The beauty and the ruggedness.
I was very specific on not wanting it to feel like, so there's a ton of documentary, like the documentary boom of this last decade is insane.
Yeah. And
a big genre is these kind of fan documentaries. I like them, but it's not what I wanted to make. I didn't want to make, aren't all these fans of this one subculture really crazy? Look, this guy's got his whole house decorated like this.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to make that. I like those documentaries. I've seen probably every single like fan subculture documentary that exists, but I knew I had to do it differently for it to stand out at all. So I'm sure there's probably people who watch it and go, this isn't what I was expecting. And that's fine. But I think what it is, again, is this sort of really intimate kind of home movie where we kind of just hang out for a summer.
Thinking back on it and rewatching it, it really is some of the greatest times of our life. Like thinking about how we run the theater now, how big of an operation it is, what we take on a regular basis. And to look back on that time when it was truly go for the gusto and take the risks. And as much pressure as there was to keep the business afloat, it was such a pleasure, and you capturing that again, it's an amazing thing. But let's talk about where we've gotten with the Mahoning Drive-In Theater and what you see us kind of becoming. The events that we put on have become much bigger than, the time that you caught.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what the biggest event I caught was. I'm guessing it was Zombie Fest or Camp Blood. I feel like those were, back then, your two big events of the year. Now, every other weekend is a Camp Blood or a Zombie Fest type deal.
Yeah.
And I do follow along. I see all the photos and it's exciting. I think of everything I've seen, of Joe Bob coming, of Bruce Campbell, like all these amazing things, Troma's having their big events there.
Yeah.
My favorite thing, and what just warms my heart more than anything to see, is Robert is the assistant projectionist. Like,
Yes.
can I like what? I would never ever would have seen that coming. And but it makes total
sense, right?
It feels inevitable now to think about that, because he was always diligent.
Yeah.
He was always, very proper in everything he did. And I'm like, yeah, that he has what it takes to be a great projectionist. And it's just so heartwarming to see that. Like, a part of me is like, I just have to go and like film Robert, and like I just want to see Robert again.
You are like everybody who sees the documentary, because they always ask, "Where's Robert?"
And it's like going to the projection booth. He's
insane.
Running the movie. It's so amazing.
He's become such an essential piece to what we do, a savior, truly, to what we do. And you couldn't script how any of the Mahoning's legend has played out, but that is storybook. That you captured a guy that was so passionate about what we do and his fandom and represents fandom and blah blah blah, and now he's the guy who's on the mic and is representing the theater on a nightly basis and presenting and holding that in such a high regard. It's, again, you couldn't script it, but it was so destined and meant to be. It's crazy, right?
He's also very fun on Twitter, and I'm so glad he got that bulb he needed for the projector, because I read so many texts or so many tweets about that bulb.
Yeah,
so
my poor guy, he went through such a heartache. But that's the thing. He holds it to a very high standard. Yeah. He's not the guy who is going to let anything slide or do anything half-assed, and he looks at what he does as truly a gift, as we all do, and in a crazy way. There's no better person to be rocking with us, right along with us.
Yeah, I loved the podcast episode with him. And I think anyone who is thinking about going to the Mahoning, I mean, if you just hear how serious he takes it and how much effort and time he puts into running the films and running them properly, making sure everything is right. Yep. And perfect, so it's the best possible viewing experience. I mean, that alone should make you want to go, and then you can go in and talk to him and ask him questions. And Jeff, same way. I mean, even in the documentary, you see Jeff kind of mentioning those really small details about loops and the audio. Again, I don't know if the average person who goes to the movies realizes what it takes to put on a movie, and even thinks, well, the person running this movie, they must be very attention to detail. They probably don't even think about it.
You don't. And that's the beauty, is the idea of, I get a front row seat being on the mic or wherever, to magicians. Like when we were kids, you don't think about that at all. It's just, hey, we're going to the movies, it's gonna be there. But the idea of somebody working the film and somebody being the guy that's there, there's no place like the Mahoning that kind of has a projectionist looked at in such a high regard. It's an art form that, like we said in the documentary, it's lost and saved right here on our property. And it's a beautiful thing when people come in and all they want to do is watch. I'm a fly on the wall. I promise I won't get in anybody's way. Can I please just watch? It's glorious. And
Robert found his calling for sure. I'm very happy.
Yeah, it's exciting. But as far as the double features that we do, things like that, you gifted us and really motivated us when you were making the documentary to go after some of the double features we did, namely Kevin Smith Fest. If you could program a night, a weekend, whatever, at the Mahoning, what's your ideal double, which we like to ask every guest that we have on?
So I have a couple of things, and these are things that in the past I've probably obnoxiously mentioned several times. I feel like one that I really liked that I pitched to you guys once was Party Like It's 1999 Weekend.
Yes.
Which this was back in 2019, so it would have been like 20 years later, and it had like a New Year's kind of theme, because I feel like 1999 was such a crucial and good year for movies.
Yeah.
You know, like there's Fight Club, there's, you know, The Matrix, Sixth Sense, you know, all this stuff. So I always felt like a party like it's 1999 weekend.
The 99 theme, I mean, definitely. I mean, we talk about trying to connect the dots with those anniversary screenings. A lot of times it happens by accident, where it's like, oh crap, you know, we didn't realize it was the 70th anniversary of, you know, whatever. You know,
that happened last season. We ran Halloween 2 on the exact night of its 40th anniversary, and we didn't know until a few days beforehand.
What a stroke of booking genius. Why, thank you.
I would love to see somehow a Twilight Zone weekend. I'm a huge Twilight Zone fan, and I would love to see
35 millimeter prints of those that have been shown in theaters. They do exist.
Well, I know it was shot on film, the original series. You wouldn't know that if you watched the Sci-Fi channel and their marathons where they have it all smoothed out to look like video. It's just nauseating. Thank God I own them already.
That works for exactly 2 episodes of that show, and you know which 2 they are.
Yeah. And then, and if you do a Twilight Zone weekend, I would love either if it's Jeff or if it's Robert to do like the pre-show announcements as Rod Serling. You know,
yes.
I mean, there's just so much theming gold that you could do with a Twilight Zone weekend.
That would perfect cross with our fandom, without a doubt.
And then I've pitched this a million times, but my M. Night Shyamalan weekend. I am a M. Night Shyamalan apologist. I know a lot of people like to rag on him, but I feel like
he is a god to you. He really is an inspiration.
Yes, because I hit him at the right. I mean, everyone has that. You know, I think every director has that director that hits them at the right time. And for Tarantino, he always would talk about Brian De Palma and, you know, when he was coming of age, and De Palma was like his inspiration at first.
Yeah.
For me, it was M. Night Shyamalan. When I was in 9th grade and sort of starting to like, I kind of want to make movies and do this and that, it was seeing Unbreakable where I was like, okay, yep, that's what I want to do. I love this movie. And, you know, I was 14 years old when I saw Unbreakable. Yeah. So a Shyamalan weekend would be amazing. I don't know if you do it, his early movies on the first night and then his later movies on the second night, but some kind of...
I know where you stand with M. Night, you know, and it's something that we have talked about. It's crazy because around the time you made the documentary, we had the opportunity to do it. But then the Buena Vista, Fox, Madness all kind of got turned around. And now we actually have the opportunity to do it. The question would be, what do we hook as far as the Mahoning hook with the title of that event? And I pitched it to the guys this year. I said, if we were to do it on a standalone night, like a single double feature on a Friday or a Saturday, my pitch is M. Night Night.
It's night.
It's night time.
And I mean, look, for anyone listening, M. Night Shyamalan lives about an hour away from the Mahoning.
It's a no-brainer, right?
And I didn't realize this. He is on the board for the Philadelphia Film Festival, which is where At the Drive-In premiered and won Best Local Feature in 2017. So there has to be someone, somewhere, somehow, some way to alert. Yeah, there has to be something to get Shyamalan either there.
Somebody send up the night signal.
Yeah. And then obviously Star Wars weekend, which I know is Disney won't let it happen, but
everybody wants that Star Wars weekend.
Even the prequels, I feel like, would do insane.
It's nostalgia, you know, like,
yeah,
it's a fandom that's the thing that we talk about on the podcast all the time. We've gone beyond film fandom and have just tapped into fandom. So if there's fandom for something, you know, it's something that can be celebrated at the Mahoning with an event. And Star Wars, when you talk about fandom, it's like, hello, it's number one. So We would love to do a celebration. And it's amazing because as we grow, we're seeing more opportunities arise where what would be amazing is doing installments, to have, hey, we're releasing the new Boba Fett show and we're going to do, an installment where we show, 2 episodes at the drive-in and take it over in a very cantina type of way. It would be amazing. And that's really the only hope we have for some of these things that are like unlicensable, ungettable. It's like if we can work some sort of an angle to say, hey, let's do a mutual celebration and a mutual promotion together, it would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the biggest weekend ever, I feel like.
Oh, without a doubt.
One last one, a Wes Anderson weekend.
Oh my gosh, steal my heart. Yeah.
His movies, he shoots them on film, so there's got to be film prints.
100%.
And I feel like if you did that in October, where people would dress up and like make it like a, like a costume weekend. I mean, his whole ouvre is just people in kind of bizarre outfits. So that was just
awesome. There'd be a run at the local thrift shops. A lot of tweed.
Yes. This is all a lead up, but before we get into your most recent project with Marionette Land, what's your perspective with the release and how it was received, the documentary at the drive-in, with your experience of it all?
I'm happy. I mean, as any creative person, you always want more and hope for more, but there were so many like magical moments with the film. Yeah. And even still now, like seeing it pop up randomly in articles or people on Letterboxd reviewing it.
I love when Amazon Prime tells me it's a movie that I might like.
Yeah. And there you are on the cover.
Mark, you are the face of At the Drive-In on Amazon Prime.
That is so bizarre when I realized that. I popped it on, I'm like, oh, what does the synopsis look like? I'm like, oh, it's that guy. But yeah, it knows my taste and it keeps saying, this is a movie you might like. You should give it a shot one day.
I've tried not to watch it recently. I mean, I watched it so much while making it and when we were showing it at film festivals.
Lived it.
And I've tried to certainly not move on from it. It would never be like that. But I was trying to say, okay, I want to come back to this someday with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
Because you get so close to it. And I haven't watched it recently, but I know at some point I will.
Yeah.
And I was looking through my phone today, and a lot of times, whatever, let's say, today's January 12th, well, I'll go into my photo app and I'll type in January 12th to see where I was or what I was doing on this day. Because I have all of my photos I've ever taken on my phone. And I kind of put in January 12th this morning, and lo and behold, 3 years ago today, we were recording the audio commentary tracks for the documentary, for the DVD.
Crazy.
And I remember
in that cold projection booth.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be warm, we promise.
but it was such a fun time. That was the one day where everyone could pretty much make it.
Yeah.
Jeff put a heater in the projection booth, and we basically had to split it up into 2 6-person teams to record 2 separate tracks because there were so many people. And I was just like, wow, that was a fun time. And that's what this documentary is for me, the way I hope it is for you guys, where it's just a time of your life that's over. It's when you look back at high school, or if you lived somewhere else and you moved, it is a chapter of your life. And this film, like you said, Virgil, this film will always be a part of my life and has nothing to do with what anyone else says or writes about it. It's simply just because meeting you guys at the time that I did, all thanks to James, because if I don't mention James, he'll get upset. Gotta mention James. He introduced me to you guys and to the Mahoning and really set everything in motion. And for me, it is really that type of thing. And I see, and again, I've made a post about this once on Facebook where a lot of people who would write reviews about it on Letterboxd or even on Twitter, a lot of them were like, this is the 8th time I watched this movie. I just put it on in the background now.
Yeah.
And it has that I don't know why. I honestly don't know what it is that makes it like that.
It feels lived in. It's inspirational. I think that's what it is.
But I've had that with movies. And I when I was like 19-ish, it was Clerks. I would just put Clerks on and do stuff. Like I wasn't even watching the movie. It was just music in the background.
Yeah.
And to know that someone else, like not just one person, but I forget in the post, there was like a dozen people who said this. And I'm like, what did I do? What was it? And again, I think, it's a hangout movie at the end of the day. It's not Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I feel like it is a hangout movie. And that's what it'll always be to me. It's
Once Upon a Time in Lehigh.
Yeah.
You captured the time of our lives, and we owe so much to you because of it. But the thing I love most about it is it's so discoverable. When you stumble upon it, it's something you feel like is yours, that like the Mahoning in its early days, it's something that you're like, these are my people, this is my thing, and when that crosses over to them actually starting to come to the theater and becoming fans and regulars, it's the craziest thing. And it's really weird when it's somebody that's local. They're like, oh, I caught this on Amazon Prime and I live 5 miles down the road. Had no idea you guys were still doing this thing. It's that gift of discovery, I think, again, that's the reason I'm going to be talking about this forever, because people will be discovering it forever. And that's a gift that I'm sure any filmmaker could only hope for. Let's get into Marionette Land. How and when did this all come in terms as far as timeline from At the Drive-In and its release?
So I started shooting Marionette Land in 2019, summer, and At the Drive-In had just come out on Amazon and everything in April. So not too much longer.
Crazy, yeah. Jumped right in.
Yeah, and you guys know Amanda, my wife.
Mm-hmm.
She was pregnant, and
yes.
I didn't want to. I felt like, so the first time I felt this rush of like, all right, I'm 30. I have to make my first feature film. This time it was kind of like, I'm about to be a dad. And it was like a race against the clock. I wanted to get one more in before becoming a dad because I wanted to be a dad. And we tried for so long. My wife and I actually did IVF, and IVF, for anyone not listening, is basically, a long, expensive, laborious, sad, demoralizing process that may or may not lead to a child.
Yeah.
So you take medication. And Virgil, you actually helped me out. So I want to give you a shout out for this. And my wife and I are very open about talking about this, but
which I love.
We went to the 2019 season opener in April, and we were in the middle of doing IVF. And basically I had to give my wife shots. You give their hormone shots that make her grow more follicles and all that. That's basically the beginning of the IVF stage.
Right.
And you basically let us use a sort of private area to do this because we couldn't do it in my car. We obviously couldn't do it outside. So you helped us out, and I appreciate that.
Oh my goodness.
You aided in the birth of my daughter. So thank you, Virgil.
I'm honored. And honestly, when you guys broached the subject, I'm sure you could see it. I was just so happy for you guys and excited for you, even though I knew you guys were going through the challenge of making it happen. But just like my decision to kind of be public and open in the documentary with what I had gone through with Nance I love the fact that you were very open about it and very public about the idea of like, this is out there and this is something that we really worked for. And to see your family now, it's beautiful.
Thank you. And we've done IVF a second time. Yep. And if anyone listening, I know this is a drive-in podcast, but if anyone listening, I mean, hey, it hits everybody. And I've every time we post about it on Facebook, I get private messages asking, what was your protocol? Who was your doctor? How long did it take? So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about it, because it could feel like a very lonely time. But on a happier note, Virgil, you were the only one. Whenever we would tell someone we were in the process of doing this, everyone would always be like, Virgil, you lit up like we had told you, like, we just won $1 million and we're going to Disneyland. But it was nice. It was nice to see that because you made us feel normal in a way.
Honestly, it's that faith that I had, like, because I had gone through my own issues with pregnancy and things like that. There is something that I kind of felt that when you guys said, hey, we're trying, we're pushing, I had this feeling of like, this again, destined. It's kind of meant to be. These two are not only meant to be together, they're meant to fight for this and make this work. And you know me, I'm king positive. So anything I can do to put a smile on a face.
So your question was Marionette Land. How did we start shooting? And we got into that. So that's
yes. But I get it. So that was the fuel, just like the turning 30. It was, hey, I'm gonna be a dad, and
yes,
I want to get a project out there before daddom takes over.
Right, because I wanted, again, I really wanted to be a dad. I wanted to be there, for everything. And while Amanda was pregnant, I didn't want to be driving around because, again, at the drive-in, I had to drive 90 minutes to the Mahoning, and I would be gone for, I would go most weekends, not every weekend, but most. And I didn't want to leave Amanda pregnant. So it was kind of like, well, what can I do that's local? And I'd always had this story in my back pocket because I made a short documentary about him. His name's Robert Brock, and he was the proprietor or the founder and artistic director of the Lancaster Marionette Theater. And yes, Lancaster had a tiny marionette theater in its downtown, and I'd become friends with him. And I always knew there was more to his story. And I said, all right, now's the time. I live 5 minutes from him. Let me kind of noodle around and see what he's doing. So I asked him, what are you working on these days? And this was summer of 2019. And he said, well, I'm thinking about bringing back my grown-up show for the first time in years. And for anyone listening who's not familiar with his grown-up show, he basically dresses up as and performs as Judy Garland, Liza Minnelli, Carol Channing, Bette Midler, all these like famous female stars of the past. And he performs with marionettes dressed up as, so it's like this really awesome show.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, there's some kind of dramatic struggle. He's in his 60s. Can he bring this show back?
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And I was just always fascinated with him the same way I was fascinated with you guys, because he lives above his puppet theater. So it's basically in his house.
Yeah.
And he has been doing this for 30 years. He started in 1990. And just the fact that this guy, this was his only job, this is all he did was run this little marionette theater. And that passion is what I just absolutely responded to. And it's what I responded to. Like, I saw myself in you guys. And that's, again, part of what goes into choosing subjects to document is, I don't think it's arrogant, but I want to reveal part of myself as well. And I want to see something that I am interested in or that I identify with.
Yeah.
And the passion that you both had, but it was different. It was for different reasons. And a lot of people say, and I think this can apply to you guys too at the Mahoning. A lot of people are like, man, if I was only good at basketball, I could be a basketball player. Or if I was only good at the guitar, I could be a famous guitarist. Or, man, if I only had a good singing voice.
Yeah.
And what I've discovered is it's more than talent. Even if you have a good singing voice, even if you have, look, everyone has probably had $1 million idea at some point in their lives, but most people don't have that $1 million. And the reason is because it takes something extra. I don't know what it is. It's some kind, or a lack of something probably, to put yourself out there and say, these are my ideas, and let them be judged by everyone else.
Yeah.
And I would tell Rob this too about the documentary. And when you put something out there, you have to be ready for people to be like, well, this is stupid, or why is he doing that? Or, you know, and I know Kevin Smith talks about this a lot too. And it's that turning off that filter or that worry that you make something and you post it or you put it out there, that the next time you see someone, they're going to remember that. And they're going to be like, well, that's the guy who's trying to be a singer, or that's the girl who's trying to start a bakery business or something. Mm-hmm. And I think what I loved about you guys and about Robert Brock is you realized it wasn't just the idea. It's that presentation. It's the taking of the first step. It's the showing up. It's the doing it. Right. Because if you just start doing it, even if your idea sucks or you don't know what you're doing or you're bad at guitar, eventually the snowball will grow.
Yeah.
And you just have to start it. And so many people don't start it because they're just afraid to. Or they're like, well, I can't do that. And I think what this documentary has taught me and what I learned from you guys and what I love about you guys is that you can. You just have to start it and something will happen and work out somehow.
And you're a model of that as well, as somebody who jumped feet first into a project that now is forever a calling card on both fronts, you know?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. Now, as far as your connection with Robert, did you know him before approaching him about the idea of the documentary, or?
I did. So I met him in 2014 and we did a short documentary called Man with Puppet. That was just like a 9-minute thing we put on YouTube, just kind of for fun. And that was what made me think there's more to this guy. I didn't go really very deep into him living with his mom above the theater.
Yeah.
You know, his whole history with depression and suicide and all that kind of stuff. So we decided, and I told him, look, if we're going to make a feature, we have to go into some of your depression, the suicidal attempt or thoughts that you had, the fact that he's gay, his relationship status, like all that has to be on the table, right. But not in like a salacious way. And that's not how I am. I'm not a gotcha filmmaker. I'm not trying to expose anything I just wanted it to all be on the table because wherever the camera, like that, the way I work is, you know, whatever sort of piques my interest is where I go. And I just wanted to know that I didn't have those boundaries with him. And he said, yes. Yeah. So we go into a lot of things, but ultimately it's, it's just about this guy who has devoted his life to something and then a pandemic comes. So, yeah.
I think it has amazing crossover with At the Drive-In in that it's a dreamer's story. You know, it's somebody who doesn't give up on dreams and all that stuff. And I think that in a way there's a crossover there.
Yeah. And I make the joke, you know, I went from a drive-in theater to a puppet theater. So
let us not forget the documentary about the video store. So you're focusing on thriving businesses.
That's right. And that is on Letterboxd as well. The Video Store Millionaire documentary.
I love video stores. So that was to be able to go back into one and essentially talk and theoretically talk to somebody who owns a video store through that short was pretty great.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. If you ever want to watch the sad, slow death of a video store,
check it out now.
Check out Video Store Millionaire on YouTube.
There's a proprietor of a Highlight establishment that I might want to send you to next.
Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah. Let me know. I'm always looking for just, you know, obscure businesses or places to go, not necessarily as a filmmaker, but just as a patron.
As a patron,
general,
yeah.
You know,
how do you feel about candlepin bowling?
Mark, I'm not shitting you. I was actually looking up bowling alleys at one point thinking, do I want to just go do a bowling alley? Like, but like a really old one that never updated.
Hell yeah.
Because I could not do one about, you go to them now and they're just so, you know, it's like Dave and Buster's. Like I can't, there's no charm in that.
There are a number of bowling alleys that are frozen in time, a couple of which I've visited in the last few years accidentally. And it is an amazing vibe that, that is the same orange plastic seat that, your grandfather might have sat on.
No, please send them my way. Anything that you go into and your reaction is, how the fuck is this still open? is
How's
what
your guy?
is, call me, because I am positive there is a fantastic story there beneath the, oh, isn't this cool that this is here? I can guarantee you there's someone or something going on there that is really cool. I mean,
under the decades of cigarette smoke residue on the ceiling, many stories lie.
Of course, yeah.
So when you shot Marionette Land, was it again just you by yourself?
Yeah, it really was. I would just kind of text Rob and be like, "What are you doing?" And he would say, "I'm doing this," and I'd be like, "Okay," and I'd come by and film. And we did that for a couple weeks, and then stuff started to emerge, a theme, a trend, a story, so to speak. And then I started saying, okay, well, now I want to get this, and this, and this. So, and again, that's what happened with you guys. It was just, let's just start and see where it goes. And then I can start kind of saying, well, I want this. Now I need this. Let's do this.
It was a magic trick. I still say, like, it's incredible to watch the outcome, because it just didn't feel, then this is no offense to you, it didn't feel crafted. It felt very much like, I'm here, I'm capturing this. And it did lead to that. It led to, hey, this is what I want to talk about. This is what I want to do. More in those personal, private interviews,
I think that's a big benefit of me doing it by myself. And I'm not preaching that as the method of making documentaries. Will I ever make a documentary with like a team of people? Of course. But I think one benefit is it never felt like high stakes. It never felt nerve-wracking. No one ever felt nervous to talk to me. And I think it's just because it was just me and a camera.
Yeah.
And that's how I approached with Rob. I mean, with Rob, it's probably even more homemade feeling because we really didn't leave his house. I mean, a few times we did, but I would say 80% of the film is in his house.
Yeah.
And it's just me and him a lot of the time. The people come in and out every now and then, but you really will get to spend time with Rob and see his experience and watch this sort of unique art form of marionettes and his life story and their parallels, and then what ultimately happens.
It's one of those things, like, it's like knocking on somebody's door and spending that time with them, and then kind of sweeping away and taking what you want from it. That's the beauty of hangout movies, I guess, in general, is it's something you can touch on, you know what I mean? Get your inspiration from and roll from and go back to as many times as you want. That's why we talked about that a lot when we first met, about that being kind of the drive in things that we love, is like the hangout movie approach. It's very, I love it.
Yeah, you feel more like you can put it on at any moment and it's fine.
Yeah.
Especially, I think At the Drive-In is very vignette-y.
Yeah.
So I think you can literally put it on anywhere, and then a smaller story will begin at some point and then ultimately wrap up the larger story.
Well, you brought up the pandemic and the idea of the pandemic hitting during the making of the movie, but what was it like trying to release a movie during the pandemic?
Oh, man.
I'm sure that must have been a challenge.
It was a challenge, and it was more sad because we were lucky to be accepted to the Philadelphia Film Festival, just like At the Drive-In. This was our big premiere, and it was virtual. I mean, we made the best of it, and they were able to tell us how many people were watching, and it was over 100 who was watching our premiere, and we had a ton of people in the Q&A. I mean, it was fine. It was great. And the Philadelphia Film Festival certainly did the best they could and went above and beyond.
Yeah.
But it was nothing like those screenings. It was so much fun to go to those screenings for At the Drive-In. Because, I mean, I'd say, like, most of them, 80% of them were extremely well attended.
Yeah.
So it was always a great time talking with the audience and hearing their reactions during the movie. But with this, I really rarely got that experience. We only had a few in-person screenings, and it was not until almost mid 2021. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was hard, and film festivals were changing, and I felt like it was harder to get the word out. Certainly winning Best Documentary at the Omaha Film Festival helped us, but it was harder. Now that everything was digital, it just felt like there were 10 million more movies.
Yeah.
I felt like the step of putting your movie on DCP properly and sending it to a festival, and I felt like all that, it was almost like a gatekeeper in a way. And now there were just so many movies, and even if your movie was selected, there were more. Every film festival was like, we're selecting more movies, and it was just you're trying to stand out. And when I remember one film festival in particular, they accepted like 200 and some films. It's like, why? So
yeah,
it was very hard, and it was very sad that my original idea was I wanted to rent out the Fulton Opera House in Lancaster City, which is where Rob performed as an actor back in the day, and have sort of a 1930s golden age Hollywood premiere, red carpet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But was not able to happen. So, but we are very happy that people will get to see the movie now the way they got to see At the Drive-In. I feel like At the Drive-In, the benefit of those film festivals was word of mouth. It got us extra, because we were able to engage with people after the screening. More people would like the Facebook page or seek us out online. Virtually, it's harder. And so we don't have that sort of big built-in audience right now that we did with you guys. So we're hoping that when this comes out on Amazon Prime and iTunes on January 18th, that people will now be able to easily discover it and tweet about it and talk about it. It's not behind some paywall at a film festival. So
yeah. Well, that's the beauty. It's a discovery piece, and hopefully we'll have that same effect that At the Drive-In had with people. Now we're coming up on a crucial date. Your release date's coming up. Am I correct?
Yes, January. So there's 2 release dates now. Thank you, supply chain issues. Our DVD was scheduled to come out the same day as digital on January 18th. So January 18th, you can see the film on iTunes, Amazon Prime, a whole bunch of other sites, just like At the Drive-In. But the supplies to basically create the DVDs, they've been delayed, the company that produces them for our distributor. And so they've pushed it back a couple weeks to February 8th. So you can still pre-order a DVD on Amazon or 100 other websites, but it won't come until February 8th
right
now. So
I know you're a huge fan of physical media, just like we are. Commentary, any special feature?
Yes. So when we were shopping the film around, I had a producer rep that was kind of shopping the film around for me to a bunch of distributors, and no one would ever want to do a physical, like the idea of putting out a DVD of your movie is just like the dumbest thing in the world to all of these distributors and to producers reps.
Right.
They're just like, why? People don't even have DVD players anymore. And I decided to go with MVD, who released At the Drive-In, solely because they would put out a physical copy that I could have a hand in producing. It wouldn't just be some made-to-order disc, which a lot of companies do, where if you buy it on Amazon, they just go and print the movie on a disc. Like, what?
Here you go. And
decided, well, I'm going to just go with MVD again. I loved what they did for the At the Drive-In release. And geez, I don't even remember what the original question was.
Just
extra features.
Yes. Oh, yes. So we have a DVD coming out February 8th, but you can still pre-order it now on Amazon. It'll have a commentary track with me and Robert Brock. It'll have 17 minutes of deleted scenes, which is really strange because At the Drive-In had 17-ish minutes of deleted scenes. So I don't know why I'm cutting out 17 minutes of stuff, but that seems to be my magic number of deleted scenes. And 2 Q&As will be on there, virtual Q&As, one from the Philadelphia Film Festival and one from the Omaha Film Festival. So you'll get to watch the movie and learn more about it. Plus, you'll get to have a cool DVD. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't imagine making a movie and not having a physical copy of it, you know? So please get the DVD and also rent it, watch it. It'll be on most of the same places that at the drive-in is, a few different ones as well. And keep an eye out. MARIONETTELAND.com will have all the links, the deets. Yeah, you can order all your copies there.
Well, now that you have it under your belt and it is coming out as a release, like you said, the experience of touring this film was probably the greatest time of my life, and I'm sure Mark can attest. But the idea of us playing it at the drive-in, and when we had the screening at the drive-in, it was so beautiful and so meta. But now maybe we'll have to look at bringing it back with a double feature with Marionette Land.
I would love to bring it back, especially because when we showed it, it rained that weekend.
That's right.
And the turnout was good, but not as good as it probably would have been had it been sunny and 80 degrees or whatever.
We'll look into it. Maybe a nice little anniversary screening or something like that.
Yeah. Well, the 5 year. Well, I don't know what to use as the anniversary, so yeah. I'm curious what you guys think. We shot it in the 2016 season. It premiered in October of 2017 at film festivals.
Yeah.
And
physically released.
It was released in April of 2019.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the anniversary is.
It's a hard one.
The anniversary year is whatever year is most convenient for when we want to show.
Right. So this year is the 5-year anniversary of the release,
right.
Of the premiere, I guess, at film festivals. So.
Well, anything else you want to let the people know as far as means to find and support not just Marionette Land, but the great Al Monelli?
I'm on Instagram at Monelli Films.
You're great with the, I take it it's you. You're great with the At the Drive-In documentary social pages.
Thank you. Yeah, that is me. I haven't been as posty lately. I should start doing more posts again. I try to...
A lot of loves, a lot of likes.
Yeah, I try to keep it fun, and I don't know, like a part of me is like I don't want to just post your posts, you know, but sometimes like when when Gene passed away.
Yeah, well, that's a direct connect.
Yeah, I felt like we had to.
And what a gift, by the way. We spoke to Gene's family, and that wasn't lost on them. The idea that a light was shined on him later in life because of the documentary. It's pretty.
Oh, good. I never met his family. I'm thrilled to hear that. I was always wondering if he had children or nephews or.
They were incredibly touched by our post and having this whole kind of subculture showing love for somebody that they love so much. It's such a strange thing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
probably for a lot of them are like, wow, I had no idea, and he's getting showered with love. It's a great thing. And that's what I love about, documentaries just in general. It's a great capture of people at a certain time. And for that to kind of live on forever means Gene and his contribution to the Mahoning will live on forever. So it's a beautiful thing. Well, Al, we could talk to you forever, bro. I mean, literally.
Yeah, I wish you guys were recording our sort of pre-talk.
Yeah.
I felt like we just jumped into it like it was 2016 again.
That's the gold. Well, maybe we'll have to. We've been talking about segments, things like that for the podcast. So any way that we can get creative together is always a beautiful thing.
Do you want to promote or mention the Lancaster Documentaries YouTube channel? Because I love it.
Well, it's on my YouTube channel. It's a playlist on my YouTube channel. YouTube.com/Al Monelli, ALMONELLI. Yeah, subscribe to me on YouTube. I definitely, I would love to make more YouTube videos. I'm not a fan of like vlogging, mostly because I feel like every vlogger is like fake happy, fake positive, fake over the top.
They gotta be. They're getting their free shit.
It's like, hey man.
I don't know what it is, but every vlogger who has, they create their own thumbnail for YouTube. It's like they're getting a rectal exam or something like that. It's like bug eyes and mouth wide open, and it's just like, why do you look like that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I like your channel, Mark. Your reviews.
Thank you.
I don't know. I always feel bad reviewing movies, like because I feel like at any point someone could be like, "Well, fuck you! You made some stupid documentary. Who the fuck are you?" Like, so I always feel bad like making, not necessarily best of lists, but I just feel bad being like, this movie sucked. Like I just didn't like it, and
we talk about that on the podcast. It's hard to talk about things that you hate when we're so steeped in celebration and love of cinema,
especially when you know how much goes into making a movie and how like you're just probably getting like stress and ulcers just from things, and to have someone in like 2 seconds be like, yeah, he's kind of stupid. Like I don't know, I just always felt bad doing that.
I'm highly aware of that. I try not to be rude or cruel and really just put it at, this is my reaction to a thing. Yours may be different. And moreover, if it's a physical media release, it's more about, here's what you're getting for your $20 or whatever.
But Mark, I consider you more of a film historian / expert, like I don't want Roger Ebert to feel inhibited in his reviews the same way I don't want you to. I just feel like as someone who made 2 documentaries and makes shorts, I don't want to sound like I'm putting myself above, like who am I to say, well, the Martin Scorsese movie wasn't good, like I'm not a film historian, I'm not a film expert.
Ebert never did it. If somebody said that, well, why don't you make a movie? He could be like, I could point you to Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, Super and Beneath the Valley of the Ultradictions. Good day, sir. But he never did that. He kept that kind of on the down low.
I got in, did a good job, and got out.
Yeah.
Went out on top.
Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Maybe what we'll have to do is have you back on for an off the wall segment where we just talk about things that we love,
Yeah.
Recommending movies that we love.
I have to come out to the Mahoning this year.
Yeah, we miss you. We didn't get you at all last year, right? Or was it
the year before? I haven't been there since Turtles Weekend of 2019.
Wow. That was awesome though. You brought your nephews with you or something?
Yeah, my nephews and Amanda came, and I mean, he was obsessed with Ninja Turtles at the time. Now he went through puberty and he's all about sports.
Does he still have those figures? Because I'll buy them off him. I was so blown away by that.
He has every NECA figure of the Turtles that they released. Still, even like he has them, like the big ones, the small ones. It's crazy. He was a huge, insane collector of them.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll have to have you back for sure. But yes, anybody out there, if you love At the Drive-In, if you love what the Mahoning is, then you love Al Monelli, and you should support him as much as you can. And get out there and snag up your copy of Marionette Land. We have our pre-order in. I can't wait to get my physical copy. You know how we roll. And Al, next time I see you, you're signing that shit for me. That's how it goes.
I would love to.
Yeah, it's harder. You can watch it and have it saved, into your favorites on Amazon Prime. But do you want Al signing your laptop screen or your home TV screen? Probably not.
I happily will. If you want me to sign your laptop, I certainly will. But I would much rather.
You can't sign a stream.
I would much rather sign a disc.
I love it, and we love you, Al.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Stay well. Give our love to the family in a big way.
Will do.
All right, my man.
Thanks, guys.
And Jeff, on that note, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.